Hello, everybody. How are we doing? Is everybody excited? I'm pretty excited. This is pretty cool. Welcome to my channel, my live stream. This is the Answers with Joe live stream. And gosh, you guys have been on my case for a while about Isaac Arthur for good reason. He's an awesome guy. His channel is one of my favorites. And a lot of you guys are on the same wavelength as he is and the same wavelength I am. And no, this is really cool. So as I've been working on getting this podcast up and going, it's been a slow process amongst all the other things that are going on with the channel. We finally were able to work out an interview with Isaac, and I'm happy to share some of those clips with you today. That's basically what this live stream is all about. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet, but we do have 5 good clips, and I'm just going to kind of set them up, let them roll, and I hope you guys enjoy it. To watch the entire thing, you want to go to the podcast, which is at answerswithjoe.com/podcast. The link is actually in the description of this video. I really encourage you to go listen to it. We talk about a wide range of topics. I get into his background, what drives him. We do a lot of shop talk if you're interested in that kind of thing about YouTube. And we also get into some of the stuff that he talks about on his channel, stuff that I've talked to him about on my channel. He is clearly very much smarter than me in a lot of these topics, which is great. I tried to step it up, tried to get a little less jokey and a little more, serious. Not really. I don't do serious too well, as you guys know. But no, it was a lot of fun. And I was a little concerned because we'd never actually spoken in person. But I'm happy to say Isaac is really funny, really smart. It was a really good time, and I hope you go check out the podcast. And while you're at it, subscribe to the podcast if you do that kind of thing, because I am going to be doing more of these. I actually recorded another podcast that is going to come out next week. I'm going to be doing another one of these with another guy that's a YouTuber, and he talks about Tesla. So I'll just tease you with that. So let me jump right into this, guys. I want to just get you to the good stuff. So the first clip we're going to be talking about. He reads a lot of sci-fi. He actually listens to a lot of sci-fi. He says he does more audiobooks than anything else. And he's I understand where he's coming from. He's like me. He can't just sit down and read something. He has to be doing something. So he listens while he does other things. But in this clip, he talks a little bit about why he thinks that science fiction and science, art and science basically, work together to do really great things. So let me just jump right into that. Here's Isaac.
No, I probably would say that I've spent more time reading sci-fi than science textbooks, which has spent a fair amount of time on those too. And it is a lot of the ideas that we look at, they do emerge there. There's like this feedback loop. You got the basic research in science. It catches someone's eye and they do a story about it, or they do a painting or something like that with it, and that feeds back in. It gets somebody looking at it and going, wow, what a fun idea this is, and then they go into research on it, come up with a new idea. So you get a good, there's always a tendency to separate art from science, like there's 2 separate fields that shouldn't even be near each other, but I think there's a really good feedback loop on that's people should spend more time on.
There's going to be a little bit of a delay between the clips and me getting back and forth just because of the way OBS works, and I apologize for that. But I love what he said there, especially as somebody who is more on the writer side of things and the filmmaker side. That's my background. To have somebody who is definitely more of a physics background and more of a science background talk about the importance of art and science working together to kind of move things forward. I think that's an awesome concept. And we talk a little bit more about that in the podcast as well. So, interestingly, the video that he put out today, which I believe you guys call Our Thursday, because it's Arthur on Thursday, is about the Fermi Paradox. He's going back to that. He has a whole series on the Fermi Paradox and the great filters, and he actually went back to that today, and we wound up talking about it just kind of randomly on the podcast. I was trying to get out of him what some of the most interesting topics that he's talked about have been, and he kind of defaulted back to that and explained, and I totally get where he's coming from here, that when you're working on something, on a video, when you're researching it, when you're writing it, it's just kind of like in your head and fresh in your head. So when I brought up what was his favorite topic, of course it was the one that was currently doing the dance in his head. So here he talked a little bit about the Fermi Paradox. I'll just go right to it. Here you go.
No, I probably would say that I've spent...
So you call yourself the king of the geeks.
I don't usually call myself that actually, but it's probably accurate enough.
Well, it's been documented forever now, so that's your new name. Uh, what kind of topics get you the geekiest? Like what kind of things do you get most excited and interested in?
To be honest, my favorite topic is actually the mega structural series. Just what are these huge things we can build around? That was the first episode I did too. But I think the one I tend to spend more time on is probably the Fermi Paradox, just because there was so much discussed there beyond just the question of where all the aliens are at. Is kind of the mindset, the approach of why would this set of circumstances actually occur. You try to dissect. We don't have any information at all. We have nothing to work with, right?
We have a sample size of one.
Yeah. What can we determine from this? And what can we not determine? What can we kind of close off and say, these solutions, these other ones, a little bit better. And, the only one I found that I really liked was the one I did, as my second video, was the Dyson Lemma. And I didn't like the theory at all. Just it works very well. I hate it, but it does seem to not have any big holes. I've always, growing up on sci-fi, I kind of wanted to think there were aliens 100 light years away from us who we could meet and shake hands with. And the idea that there were probably none in the galaxy at all has always kind of bugged me a bit. But it does seem, no Santa Claus, no leprechauns, and no fun summits with aliens from right next door, That's just the way that works out. And maybe we're wrong, but, maybe somebody's at the North Pole too.
So the Dyson dilemma, that's the idea that we can't see any of the aliens because they've all created Dyson swarms around their stars, right?
Close. The idea is that because we can't see any of those Dyson spheres, and we would be able to, and we expect them to build them, the absence of them indicates nobody's there at all. We would expect them to build them, and because we don't see it, it's kind of like somebody says, there's a civilization here in this desert. They say, we ought to be able to see this from far away. It's like, well, we can't hear them talking because they're not right next to us. Like, well, that's fine, but where are the skyscrapers? Where are the tilled fields, right? Mm-hmm. Civilizations leave a lot of marks behind of their existence, and we know kind of where they should be aiming to go based on what we know about science now. And when we don't see any marks that indicate that, that you can draw two conclusions. One is that we just have a completely wrong set of assumptions, which is entirely possible. That's nothing new. Science changes on us every century, right? Or two is that the reason we don't see them is they just don't exist. And, you can't really make an argument based on saying anything's possible because that doesn't get you anywhere.
Okay, what's really funny is he talks about some of this stuff in his video today, and we just happened to touch on it on our talk the other day. Real quick, hey, Brad B sent me a super chat. Thank you, sir. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And by the way, another really cool thing, Isaac's in a live chat, guys. So watch what you say about him. You guys be nice. Isaac's actually there. Don't say anything. Don't say anything mean. Be nice. Okay. Also, I don't know, like how. I hope you guys are enjoying the fact that you're actually seeing Isaac in person, because he's never actually in his videos. I think he did say that he was in one of his videos way back when he and I did our when we did our collaboration a while back. I jokingly had him say that he was just a disembodied voice over here. You ain't disembodied no more, man. They can all see you now. Another thing that I noticed in that clip, I'm going to make fun of myself really quickly. Whenever I say something that I think is fairly clever, I start to kind of do this in my seat a little bit. I'm like a dog wagging its tail. I'm just so proud of myself. I said something that I thought was clever. So pay attention to that from now on, and feel free to make fun of me, because God knows I am. So this next clip, I don't remember exactly how I got on this topic specifically. I think I was, and maybe I actually said this at the beginning of the clip, that I was saying that I think that if we ever were to find an alien civilization or come into contact with an alien civilization, it would actually be some mechanical version of them that outlived their biological selves. And he goes on to talk about cyborgs, which is why it's in the title of this video. And so that's what this clip is about, is basically how we are more like a cyborg now, but we still consider ourselves humans, and aliens would probably feel the same way. So let's jump into that. That's why I think that if we ever do actually communicate or connect or meet any alien species. Or I think they're probably going to be a species that evolved beyond their biological selves. It would probably be a mechanical.
I tend to figure almost everybody who gets out into space is at least somewhat of a cyborg, but I would bet in most cases, if you go, to the 23rd century and you ask somebody, "Are you a human or a cyborg?" They say, "How could you even ask that? Of course, I'm a human." But just like with us, we would never think to say, I'm a cyborg or I've got some feelings that makes me a cyborg.
Right.
I imagine even if they have very little to do with us biologically anymore, they'd still call themselves humans. So I'd imagine a lot of the aliens we encounter would probably tend to have a bit of the same thing,
Yeah.
That's always hard to say. They might go the exact opposite way and say, I don't want to be anything like what we used to be,
Yeah.
And if they stick to that basic biological template, even if they're doing add-ons, we can still make some guesses about their behavior. If they don't, though, we can at least make the assumption they probably opted to be very logical, in which case we might be able to guess their behavior too.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think that they would have to be a certain mindset to be able to do the science and, do the technology to get to that point.
I mean, it's always a statistics game. There could be a species out there that just blundered into technology, even though they have no sense of curiosity at all. But you would expect them to be, not the norm. They are the exception that proves the rule. And the odds of us bumping into them first are fairly small,
Yeah. Oh, took me a minute there. Sorry about that. So somebody, Joaquin, I believe, asked me if I could turn the volume up. You guys let me know if my volume is pretty low on here, and I'll give it a little boost. Actually, I'll just go ahead and do that a little bit here. Sorry about that, guys. So I thought that was an interesting clip. That's why I chose it for you. The next clip, I've talked a lot, for those of you who follow my channel, I've talked a little bit in recent months, whatever, about the oncoming automation and AI that could be, causing a big disruption economically and in employment and stuff like that, and how to we need to start kind of preparing for that. And you can go really doom and gloom on that kind of thing, and a lot of people do. A lot of very high level, smart, wealthy people do. But we touched on that a little bit, and I thought Isaac had a really great response to this, which will lead into the next clip, but I'm going to break him up. But you'll see why I chose the next clip after watching this one. But let me jump right into that. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence here.
Everybody expects computers to get faster. It would be almost insane to say they wouldn't, but kind of plateauing out a bit as we get closer and closer to the atomic scale. And I don't see any reason why you could not make a human intelligence mind or higher. It's just that I don't see this zoop kind of thing they always have going on. And I never see it being just one machine in a lab somewhere that turns on and it's, in God mode.
Sentient all of a sudden.
Dozens of these things out there that are almost as good. And, if you got a problem with one of these going crazy, you turn to one of the others and say, how do we fix this? There's not going to just be that one versus everybody else. And at least I hope not.
So you think the fears that Elon Musk has been putting out there lately, and even, I guess, Stephen Hawking was talking about it too.
A lot of
a little bit over the top.
Over the top, yeah. It's, you don't want to replicate Hollywood science. Isn't something you can talk about? Yes, it absolutely is. But that's what it is. If you're dealing with a computer that is that, they turn to boogeymen. There's no way to kill them. They ascribe them various properties that basically make them undefeatable. If those are real and they should actually happen, there's nothing to worry about because you're going to lose. It's like if aliens. How do we survive an alien?
Don't worry about it. You're dead.
How do you survive an alien invasion? Right now, pray, or ask them to not kill you. That's about it.
I just realized I'm wearing the same jacket right now that I was wearing the other day when I was talking to Isaac. The AC blows right on me right here, so I have to wear the jacket every once in a while. You guys really wanted to know that. So that was what you just saw, was just part of a very, probably, 10, maybe 15-minute conversation about how AI is not really the danger that a lot of people have been saying that it might be. And I thought he has some interesting points there, and he talked a lot about ways that we can disable any kind of intelligent system that might go all Skynet and decide to start making more of itself and killing everybody, that it's actually a lot simpler kill switch than we like to think it is, and especially as the science fiction likes to talk about. So that leads to this next and last clip. And I really wanted to talk to Isaac about the fact that, his topics are such big picture, long-term, super future type stuff that on the surface seems impossible. And there's a lot of people that think that we're just not going to make it as a species to the point to where we could do these kinds of things, if they're possible at all. So what kind of person spends the amount of time that Isaac does looking into these things? And just a quick story, and I talk about this in the podcast. The first time I found Isaac's channel, God, I'm doing the same thing that people do to me. The first time I found his channel, I was doing the video on the Matryoshka brain. And I was just, sometimes I'll go and I'll find graphics and clips from other people's videos, and I always make sure and give them, credit at the bottom of the screen. And I found something from his. I think his video was actually on the Kardashev scale. I could be wrong. But anyway, so I found this great footage, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, who is this guy? So I'm watching the rest of this video, and as you guys know, it was an investment of time, but worth it. And the whole time, I was just like, how is there a person that put this much thought into this topic? Like he was going into the math and how much each shell of the Matryoshka brain would, collect sun or sunlight or starlight from the star going out, and he had the math and the physics behind it and everything and the numbers, and I was just like, oh my God! Just to even talk about that subject is pretty high level, but to actually go into the hardcore numbers of it is just majorly impressive. So that's how I first discovered his channel. And that is also the difference between him and me. That is stuff that I'm just not capable of. And you're probably not going to be seeing that on my channel anytime soon. So all that goes to me saying, again, I wondered what kind of person Isaac would be to be putting that much thought and effort into something that a lot of people would say is impossible. So that leads to this conversation. And I really like what he says here a lot. So savor the flavor. So I had a thought I wanted to run by you. I guess I was watching one of your videos the other day, probably kind of getting ready for this, but do you consider yourself an optimist?
I usually think of myself as being very pragmatic and realistic, but I've been told I'm very optimistic too. So,
well, the reason I ask that is because sometimes when I touch on subjects like that, I'll get comments from people that are like, yeah, but we're going to wipe ourselves out in 100 years or something like that. And I want to be like, oh yeah. But at the same time, Stephen Hawking's been saying stuff like that, like some really smart people have been saying we're going down a really,
Stephen Hawking
down a path that we're kind of screwed.
He is a cosmologist. He is a genius. He's come up with, I don't even bother why I say that. Everybody knows Hawking's very smart. And of course, you can apply their brain to stuff other than their field, right?
Yeah.
And he makes some fair points, right? But I think he's been a little bit doom and gloom of late in the last 10 years or so. Doesn't mean his points might not turn out to be valid, but many of the things he says about things like the Fermi Paradox, he was just saying something that somebody said 30 or 40 years ago. I don't think he was claiming it as his own, but Hawking said it, so now it's big news.
Sure, yeah.
Even if he had just gotten done saying something like, well, back in the 70s they had said, Hawking says, we should always pay attention to what people like him have to say on these things, but we also always have to take it with a grain of salt that they don't have a magic crystal ball in the future either.
I've been talking about automation taking jobs and that kind of thing, and with the rise of artificial intelligent bots and whatnot. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that we're going to completely collapse as a civilization, although it could happen. I mean, it's happened before.
I mean, that's the interesting thing is people always say, civilizations all fall. Look at Rome. I say, well, okay, let's look at Rome. I was there about 10 years back. Beautiful city. That's capital. So let's look at Rome. I think they were down now for about 20 years before they became the center of civilization for a big chunk of the world again. Yeah.
I mean, we definitely have our cycles. We have our dips, and I think there's reason to be concerned that might be happening again. But, I think I'm a little bit more optimistic. Maybe you are even more optimistic than I am that we are a species that can overcome these things and and keep moving forward.
I always assume there's a chance we're going to take ourselves out. It could happen. But, and you should never just say, oh, we've always fixed problems in the past, so we can just lie back and take it easy. You take that kind of mindset, and it's like, this will fix itself. Because it always has in the past. Yeah. And that's, when the steamroller comes over hit you because you didn't do anything to stop it. But I am always pretty confident that if we put our effort into it, keep ourselves, hard working on these problems, yes, we'll fix them.
How great is that? I love that, especially his comment about Rome, visiting Rome and saying it's a beautiful city. That laughter that I had, that was totally real. I almost fell out of my chair. Guys, I am not going to keep this too much longer. I actually have a packed day and I can't stick around too much longer here, but I really want to thank Isaac for doing this. This was a blast, and I really hope we can do it again in the future. And if you get a chance to check out the podcast, please do. Link is down below. It runs a little bit long for me anyway. It's about an hour, but if you like Isaac, God, I did it again. I got to pay back that super chat. That's money in a jar. Anyway, if you like Isaac's stuff, a 1 hour video or a 1 hour podcast should not be a challenge for you. So we talked about a lot of stuff that obviously is not on here. Those are 5 clips out of many, many, many that I could have chosen from. But I encourage you to go check that out. I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast if you get a chance. And by the way, I have to say it, if you are a Patreon member, you actually get to see that full video that I pulled these clips from, the full video of our conversation, unedited. Patreon supporters do get to see that, even if you only contribute $1. Perfectly fine with me. So had to say that, had to put it out there. Again, really quickly, Isaac, I appreciate you doing this. I really hope we can do it again sometime. If somehow you are a follower of my channel and have not been to Isaac's channel, definitely go check it out. There should be a link down in the description below, and if there's not, if you're watching it in the future, I'll put a little card up here. But anyway, thank you guys so much for checking this out. If you're watching it in the future, thank you so much for watching this. If you're in the chats, you guys keep on chatting. And in the meantime, I'm sorry, I do have to cut this a little short today, but maybe I'll do like a surprise stream later on this week and just pop in and answer questions from people and stuff like that. But anyway, thanks again, everybody, and I'm going to be shutting this off now. Hope you have a great weekend coming up, and I should be back here on Monday. Love you guys. Take care.